Hello, Hearts of Oak. Thank you so much for joining us once again on another news review. And with the Irish election just happened, I'm delighted to have Hermann Kelly back with us again to touch on that and many other news items. Hermann, thanks so much for your time today.
Peter, it's always a pleasure. Very happy to be here.
Great to have you, and lots to discuss. And obviously, you can jump onto Hermann's Twitter X profile, and that's what you'll find leading the Irish Freedom Party. And we'll get into all of that and what has been happening with the elections. Let me bring up a picture of Hermann at one of the election counts. Give me one tick, and there you go. Bring that up. And there's Hermann enjoying one of the election counts there in Louth. So, Hermann, do you want to just give us a little bit of a flavour? And I'll bring up some screens. Obviously, most of our UK or US viewers will have no idea who Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael are, probably not even Sinn Féin. But do you want to touch, just had election just days ago, so what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'll try to give people a flavour. Basically, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have been in coalition for some time. They are formerly conservative and quite nationalist parties who've moved way to the left and become globalist and anti-nationalist. They were supported in the coalition by the Green Party. There was a general election, and the outcome was, and a general election in which there has been, over the last number of years, since the Irish Freedom Party had a big meeting in the RDS 6 years ago, there's been a growing, nascent, the return of nationalism, the nationalist movement in Ireland, and the Irish Freedom Party has been an ideological spearhead of that. In this general election, we helped reduce the Sinn Féin vote by 5.5%. Sinn Féin were a formerly nationalist party, once again, like the other mainstream parties, have become globalist. They're all pro-mass immigration, pro-hijabs, puberty blockers for 16-year-olds. Like all the woke nonsense that comes directly over from America feeds directly into the kind of policy documents of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and Sinn Féin. I call them the Irish Troika. The Irish Troika were those from the Commission, the ECB in the European Union, who controlled Ireland economically, dictated policy there during the last crisis, 2009, 2013. The Irish Troika, that's what they are. They are anti-nationalist, they're very woke, and basically we took them on. It was the small battalions versus the big battalions, but we helped reduce the Sinn Féin vote quite dramatically. Myself in County Louth, we quintupled our vote from the last election, general election in 2020, where we got 0.81% in the first round. This time, I got 4% in the first round, and I was not put out until the round 14, where I went out with 5.66% of the vote. I was in between Michael O'Dowd, whose brother is a TD, and also the chairman of the local council, Kevin Callan. Now, both these men have tried to be elected in County Louth for the last 23 years, so that I, who have never stood in Louth before, would be between these two guys is a great achievement. It really says something about those who were supporting me, coming out, helping to canvass for me, give out leaflets and posters, etc. And the difference between me and them was also that I was not allowed on RTE for the debates. I was not even allowed on the regional radio station, LMFM, for any election debates. I wasn't invited to not a single hustings, a public debate. I don't even know that they take place. Ireland is becoming like the North Korea of Western Europe, where they have this monolithic media, what you call blob, with all the same views and they are in bed with the political class, the NGO class, all very similar views, probably go to similar colleges, marry each other's sisters, uh, share the money among themselves, and basically we have what we call it's slavishly pro-EU, slavishly very aggressively secularist, uh, hates everything unique, in particular about Ireland, its history, its language, its sport, its music, its dance, etc. And especially it hates the idea of the Irish people are good enough to make their own laws and decide their own destiny in this world. So basically, we have a growing nascent movement led by the Irish Freedom Party, which have increased the vote dramatically in the last election. Actually, of all political parties in Ireland, we are the highest growth party. I believe it went up by overall by 170% growth. We're also in absolute terms, the number of votes increased. We were the fifth biggest party in the whole country. So the future looks good for ourselves. We have tried to be sane and sensible. We have kept away from lunatic candidates and lunatic policies. We don't go down every rabbit hole. We try to keep it sane and sensible and keep with issues that impact on people's lives, so that how immigration touches on the housing crisis, on access to medical care, to schooling and education for their children, on against the carbon tax. We're against this climate alarmism, so to speak. We're opposed to the carbon tax. What the Irish Freedom Party want is a free people and a free country, and we believe that we're good enough to make our own laws, decide our own budgets and borders, and going forward, we are only going to get better. We're going to get better quality candidates. We're going to get better organized. We're going to get better financed, and we're going to put these candidates out much earlier to get involved in their local communities and get out there not 1 year, not 3 months before a general election. We are looking now to put these people in place as soon as possible to give them, be it a 4 or 5 year run-in into the next general election.
Well, let me bring up one or two of the stories from it. Here's from the BBC. Fianna Fáil emerges as the largest party in Irish election. Fianna Fáil won the most seats, 48 seats, while Sinn Féin won 39. Fine Gael 38, and we'll touch on some of those parties. But let me also bring up a map, which I think will give some talking points, because there has been a change in Irish politics, and then I want to touch a little bit more on you and your role in standing. But here are a few maps, and it was just, I think, interesting. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael is the red graph that's falling. Sinn Féin is the green that's going up, and that's from 89 to the current day. And that combined vote between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael that's always been there for many, many decades has fallen considerably. And on the right, you can see some of those changes. Fianna Fáil, 1997, 77, all the way down to 38 seats won. Fine Gael down, and Sinn Féin going up, and independent candidates also growing. So tell us about that, because there does seem to be a change of the guard happening in Ireland politically, although maybe for some of us it's not happening fast enough.
Yeah. I suppose it's the fall and influence of the formerly the big parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and you've had the rise over the last number of decades of Sinn Féin. I believe, although that could have been halted, because Sinn Féin, since last October, have halved their vote in the polls. They were expecting, of course, that they, after this general election, would be in government, and they're nowhere near it. So that is quite significant. There has been a big increase in the number of independents, and in the rise over the last number of years, the nationalist movement and vote has increased sharply. As you say, it hasn't increased sharply enough, but we are getting better organized. We are weeding out the chaff, so to speak, in regards candidate. We need better quality candidate selection. We need to keep on point on the issues that impact on people's lives. All we have to do is keep sane and sensible, not to do anything crazy. Don't put forward crazy people. And, people will see the good sense of working for the benefit of your own people rather than being under the dictate or influence of globalist corporations and supranational organizations which don't have the good of the Irish people at heart.
What is it like? Because we've seen changes. I think the UK and Ireland have been left a little bit behind in the rise of populist parties across Europe.
Ireland is probably the last, actually.
Yeah, but Ireland faces the same issues, maybe even more. I mean, the level of immigration that Ireland has faced has been one of the highest in Europe when you take it per capita.
Yeah, it's not only the highest, it's also the quickest change. Because, like, you can see the discussion about immigration in Britain has happened slowly, gradually, and even there a number of years ago, the people in Britain were having discussions for a long time when their rate of immigration of non-nationals into the country was officially 14%. Ireland is now at 22%. And for certainly when we started the Irish Freedom Party 6 years ago, even to say the word immigration or to state the fact that increased immigration, increased demand for housing, and increased housing prices and housing scarcity was, oh my God, how could you do that? How can you say that? Even raising an issue where it's very blatant. Now in Ireland, at least, it's a topic which people are now that's what they don't want to talk about all the time. And actually, it's moved dramatically. The public attitude to immigration has changed dramatically. 75% of the population now believe that Ireland has had too much immigration and they want to slow it or stop it. We have now formed the mainstream opinion in Ireland, and that these reckless open border fanatics who have controlled the narrative in the media and the political parties for generations now, they are the extremists, they are the crazy minority. And you know what? Even in this election, all the other parties were starting to talk tougher on immigration. Now, the problem is, would you trust people who've helped destroy your country? Are they the people to help make it better again? I don't believe they are. There's a huge trust issue, but there's a huge, there is an ongoing struggle, ideological struggle in Ireland. As you say, Ireland is very late to the game compared to a lot of Western Europe, but come to the game it must, because the issues which have impacted on the continent in Europe and in Britain have come to Ireland, and we just have to wake up and smell the coffee, as the Americans say.
How does it affect with reform doing well? I'm just curious, and obviously you've been steeped in politics back in the days with in the European Parliament, engaged with UKIP and the grouping there. I mean, how do you see, because reform were only able to get 5 seats, but now they're polling in second place. Do you look to a party like that has been an insurgent party that's won over? Because I guess whenever you're leading a party, you're looking at how other populist parties are succeeding at the ballot box.
Absolutely. I've been working here in the European Parliament for 15 years. I was head of comms for the Eurosceptic group for 10 years. Nigel Farage was then the co-president. So I've worked with Nigel Farage for 10 years. I know him extremely well. And of course, I look at what is going on in UK. I'm very pleased to see the growth of reform. Very pleased to see that. I look also about what happens with the Sweden Democrats, FN with Marine Le Pen, Geert Wilders, Viktor Orban, Vox in Spain. One thing, and I'm very upfront about this, I've got a lot of opposition about it, even a lot of personal hatred, is that you have to set boundaries about the quality of the people that you have, and also the issues that you're going to raise and how you're going to raise them. Now, people may be angry, and people are rightfully angry about they see their country being destroyed before their eyes, and they're angry. But the thing is that we want to achieve. We We don't want to be kind of like a street rally group who are out in the street protesting about the government all the time. We want to be in government. We want to have political power. There's no use complaining about political decisions if we make no attempt to get political power. We, as a political party, are in the business of attaining political power. We want to replace this political class in Ireland before they replace us. We have to set boundaries. We have to say that we want good quality candidates who are articulate, educated, involved in the communities, not online kind of social media warriors, keyboard warriors. We want people, and we want to enunciate policies which impact people's lives and which aren't seen as like 0.1% minority status opinions. So we want to keep away from minority sports, so to speak, and we want to attract people with the wisdom of our policies rather than scare away people with the kind of crackpot ideas. I've taken personal abuse over that, but you know what? I know, because I've seen over a long period of time what works all across Europe, what doesn't work, and I'm not going to get involved in any kind of stuff about racial purity or Jews, or all this crazy crackpot stuff. I'm not going there. If people want that, they'll have to get another bicycle, but they'll not be doing it with me. So I'll try to keep a steady course and to ensure that the party and candidates are electable and have policies which reach the needs that people have.
No, 100%. It is the long game, and I've seen year on year, as you've grown in influence and in popularity, that's what it is about, keeping your eye on the prize and not getting distracted on issues. Now, there is this story about the killing of this girl. Man arrested in connection with murder of girl in Wexford, and this was, I think you posted this was from RTE News. And it's interesting because part of it, and it's their Gardaí, the Irish police force, just for those of you watching not from Ireland, Gardaí are also concerned that certain groups and individuals, those with anti-immigrant and far-right sentiments, are trying to use the incident for their own ends. They are spreading disinformation and misinformation online. Surely if a little girl, and we've seen this in Southport in the UK, up in Liverpool, 3 children murdered, and the media and the police were falling over themselves to critique those who were angry about it. And surely you would expect people to be angry at a child being killed. And then you've got the issue of that it seems to be a non-Irish family, so that concern. But this seemed to be a big story. What were your thoughts whenever you've seen this and how the media try and portray it?
It's just another example of the politicization under the Garda, let's say, President, Chairman, Leader, Drew Harris, the politicization of the Irish police force being utilised by the Department of Justice to give out a political message rather than a policing. Now, it is absolutely barbaric. And what happened in Wexford with this girl a girl of 8 had her throat slit by her father. Of course, it's another instance and this guy shows one about the danger of the importation of this dangerous, like, political ideology with the veneer of religion, Islam, which advocates, I think, 109 times in the Quran about advocating violence towards non-believers. That's a very dangerous, it's kind of softness on violence is worrying, but also on open borders. Like that father who had just come over, had been released from jail in the UK, and had then came over to Ireland and slit this girl's throat. I believe he was trying to kill the girl's mother. Yeah. And the young girl intervened. That's what's believed. But it looked as if it was on purpose, because you don't slit a girl's throat just by accident. People have every right and are justified in their anger. And it's discussing that the police would be instrumentalized by the Department of Justice to turn it around and accuse people who want controlled immigration in Ireland, who want borders, who just don't want anybody and everybody slipping into the country and carrying out murder in the middle of the day. Now, this is part of a series of Islamic murders, killings in Ireland. We had, like, just off the top of my head, we had two gay men in Sligo were castrated and decapitated by a Muslim from Kurdistan. Sorry, a Kurdish and young man of 21. We had there last November. We had a Muslim man, I believe he was from Algeria, stabbed 3 school children in the middle of a street in Dublin in broad daylight. That was last November, and now we've had this instance. And there was also a murder in Belfast as well by, I believe, a Somalian individual who stabbed a travelling woman up in Belfast. I think it was Ward was her surname. So a pattern has emerged, and the importation of the people who carry this Islam into Ireland, and also the problem of open borders, of anybody and everybody just waltzing into our country. And the problem is, when we don't know who they are, where they're from, do they have a criminal record, what are their intentions in our country? Well, violence happens, and people are aware of this. Look, we only have to look across all mainland Europe, where we can see the vast increase in serious criminality, sexual assault, killing, all across Europe. These people coming from a different culture with different sets of values, they present a danger to the peace of Europe. And you know what? People want to do something about it. So they have completely justified to raise it as an issue, and it's discussing that the Gardaí would be used to try to silence the debate or to tell people what they should think when they see a Garda being murdered in the middle of the day.
I mean, it's a huge issue we're seeing all across Europe. And if immigration, if it's coming from a country as we've seen in the past, immigration coming over and people integrating in society, but it does seem particularly that Islam wants that separation and wants to keep itself to itself. And then you look at the legal Islamic legal system and food system and education system, and it all wants to be separate. And that's not how we've done. We have had integration generally up until level, but certainly I see in London, it's very much ghettoized with separate groupings. I think we're seeing that in Ireland, but then into the mix is, what does it mean to be Irish, or what does it mean to be British? And there's that whole debate of, I guess, confusion of identity. And that's maybe why the police and the media are like a rabbit in the headlights. They don't know what to do because they have lost their sense of identity.
Yeah, they're also afraid. It's also a matter of, maybe it's self-loathing, as you say, based on this loss of identity, loss of cultural confidence in who they are and what they believe, etc. And on from that, then you get this cultural self-loathing. But you mentioned there about Islam. You should call it out and name it, what the problem is. I don't see Buddhists going around cutting people's throats in the middle of the day. I don't see Sikhs going around the streets of London trying to stab people that they don't know, and I don't see Hindus or Methodists, free Presbyterians going around the streets of, like, Ipswich or Galway trying to gratuitously stab strangers. So it's obviously it's a problem unique to Islam, to its ideology, to what it says in the Quran and the Hadith, what they're instructed to do. It is a global problem. It's just not a problem unique to Ireland, of course. But hey, the whole thing about the identity is very important, actually, and the whole thing about identity and citizenship, legal citizenship. In Ireland, we have the problem about so many people have come in here. Now, in Ireland, our population has increased by 42% in the last 35 years. In 1995, it was 3.5 million. Now, it's over 5.3 million. That's a huge increase. Now, official figures, 22% of the population are non-Irish. Given the naturalisation of people, the Department of Justice throw Irish passports around like confetti. I'm sure that many people who now have Irish citizenship and Irish passports are not Irish and have no loyalty to the nation or the state of Ireland at all. They're here. Many people come here for immigration for free stuff, for free housing, free welfare, free medical care, even free legal aid. The taxpayer is paying for their own destruction. And it's the political class, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, who are allowing all this. As I said, the Troika, our task is to replace them before they replace us with non-Irish.
No, exactly. Let's go on to a post you put up on prisons. And this is an issue that we have in the UK. Just obviously you have also in Ireland. And the title from the Irish Independent was "Sex Offenders Could Be Given Temporarily Release to Cut Pressure on Overcrowded Prisons," says report. We seem to have a huge issue with our judicial system across the board. Surely you would think that someone who's committed a sex act on someone else, a sex offender, they would be a higher risk, a higher category prisoner, and therefore should have less reason to get out. But what is the problem? Are Irish prisons overcrowded?
Yes. But even before we get to that problem about the proffered release of prisoners for serious sexual assaults, we have a problem before that. In that, as you say, in Ireland too, we've got massive problems with the judicial system, leniency in sentencing towards heinous and disgusting and terrible sexual assaults and rapes on minors, on young children, in vans, in the back of vans. These young children have been harmed, just hurt for the rest of their lives. And you see the people who've committed these crimes, be it Irish or non-Irish, getting off with suspended sentences time after time after time is absolutely disgusting, and it is makes a lot of people angry. I would suggest people look up the judgments of one. Let's take one judge, for example, a Judge Martin Nolan. And if people were to Google the cases of Martin Nolan when it comes to sexual assault and sexual crime, they would be absolutely astounded at how many people, how many criminals, how many rapists, how many people who have been convicted of sexual assault that this judge has allowed off with suspended sentences. It's absolutely disgusting. It's incredibly dangerous. It brings the whole thought of justice into disrepute in Ireland, the legal system into disrepute among ordinary people, and the whole thing about people want to live in a safe area. They want to ensure that the children can walk around, go to the playground, play with their friends, like in a normal society that we had not that long ago. And they don't want to be living in fear that when their children are out the street, they're going to be sexually assaulted or raped by strangers or anybody. And so I like the Irish Freedom Party, we would like to see a change in the bail laws to make it more difficult for those people to get out, even when they're waiting. We have to tighten up on the sentencing to give, because I think there will have to be constitutional change actually to get a hand on judges who basically do their own thing. There's no control over them at all. The public, there doesn't seem to be any kind of tight professional standards by which they must work by. So there will have to be a real reform of the judicial system in Ireland to tighten up the bail laws, the sentencing, and the judges themselves, because this whole system of leniency on sex assault is just not on, and it is compounded by now this idea and this government report that sex offenders be released from Irish prisons. It's just appalling, and the vista of that when concerned parents look at that and they see about sex offenders running around on Irish streets, people who've been convicted of rape and sexual assault of minors already. It's just unacceptable.
No, it is. That's something we're seeing across Europe in terms of prison overcrowding and failure of our legal system to deal with serious crimes.
I actually, do you know what? As you mentioned that there is a large, the Irish state a number of years ago bought a large site in Ashburn in County Meath. Just the name of the prison slips my head. It begins with T, if that's any good. That they bought this prison. There was planning problems and they didn't get it. It's now been turned into instead of a prison where we get a large, like up-to-date prison that could be used efficiently for its purpose. It's now being turned into a direct provision centre for hundreds, if not thousands, of people, many of whom have entered into Ireland illegally. So instead of being these people coming here illegally, being put in prison, no, they're going to be put up in a direct provision centre, like a hostel hotel type place. It's the total turnaround of the justice system. Another aspect, the Minister of Justice, Helen McEntee, she has rewarded people who have come here into Ireland illegally by saying about if you've come here in Ireland illegally and you've stayed for over a certain number of years, you can apply for citizenship and we will give you a pathway to citizenship, even though you've come here and you've stayed here completely illegally. So why would a justice minister reward illegal behaviour? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Let's touch on France and what's happened there. Big story at the moment. And here is Emmanuel Macron, of course, blaming everyone but himself. In good Macron style. French President Emmanuel Macron blames extremist parties for throwing government into chaos as he reveals the country will have a new prime minister in the coming days and vows he will stay in office. And on the left, you've got President Macron, obviously elected recently with a hugely reduced amount and very weak. You've got Michel Barnier in the middle, who is the prime minister, appointed by the president, and of course Marine Le Pen at the bottom, rising in popularity hugely. But yeah, this Herman, this no confidence vote that removed the prime minister, and the prime minister was the appointee of Macron. So it points to Macron as being a weak individual, and whoever he chooses will not be agreed by the parliament. But what are your thoughts? Because this is chaos, really, political chaos in the middle of Europe.
Yeah. Even like, was it 5 years ago for the presidential election, 49% of the parties in the first round that they had a policy of leaving the European Union. So actually, politics in and France is actually it's quite radical. However, the voting system of the two-round system always pushes everything towards the centre. That's the way it's designed. But it's funny. I've met both the people involved, Marine Le Pen and Michel Barnier, a number of times over the years in my work. But it shows that people are unhappy about a number of issues in France. And it's not just that there's chaos, it's that people are unhappy with the incumbents who are there in power and they want change. And of course, Macron wants to resist this change. But you know what? I think at this stage it will be inevitable. Now, this removal of Barnier centered around like the economy or certainly the finances of the French government are perilous. And they had to introduce austerity because the amount of public debt in France. And both the left and Marine Le Pen's party rejected this. And so we're back now. We're looking for a new prime minister in France. And I suspect that this will continue, that the centrist party and Macron in particular and the Gaullists, the former Gaullists, are going down in influence and power, and we are seeing the rise of Marine Le Pen, Rassemblement National, and I hope they get power eventually. The electoral system in France, I believe, is very well. It's designed to push towards the centre, and I understand that that's one of the conditions that Marine Le Pen was looking for her to agree to go into government. That there would be a reform of the electoral system to make it some way fair. Like I thought the British system, like first past the post, was bad, but believe me, the French system is much worse. Uh, in regards being proportional, like having some type of proportional representation of the population as in the representatives in the parliament. So that will take place. Actually, what they do in Ireland is they have proportional representation, but they get around this proportionality by cutting the size of the constituencies. Many of them are three-seaters. It's very hard to have any type of proportionality when you've got very large constituencies. So that's how they skew the board in Ireland. And what we would like to see is more five-seaters, six-seaters, even seven-seaters. And they have all these silly ones where counties are being split up from a six-seater or a potential six-seater into two three-seaters, etc. We need to see more five, six, and seven-seat constituencies to give smaller parties like ourselves a chance of representing those who vote for us in the parliament.
And just touch on that. It's been a while since Ireland had a standout party that's really had a large share of the vote. When you looked at those parts, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, and Sinn Féin, all having kind of around the lower mid-30s as a number of seats, and they're 170 seats, is it, in the Dáil? How many seats?
Yeah, 174, I believe. Yeah.
So when you look at the winning party getting 34, 35 seats, and that's a very short of 170. I mean, how does that work in terms of stability? I mean, Ireland had
to get a majority, we need half of the 174, but
yeah,
whatever they do, whatever it is. Yeah, it just seems to be the splitting up of the larger parties and the dissipation of this kind of political monopolies or duopoly that we've had in Ireland for a long time. The nationalist parties like the Irish Freedom Party are rising. You also have, sadly, like things like the Social Democrats, people before puberty or profit, as they're called, coming up as well. But I think things will come better for ourselves. Like we are increasing, as what has happened. Like look at like Marine Le Pen reform in the UK. They were coasting along with very little representation, and then all of a sudden, bingo, they're going like less than 1%, then they're 2%, and then the next thing they're in like 15%. Look at Vox in Spain as a great example. What we have done is we've tried to present clear ideological opposition to the establishment that we have in Ireland, be it on immigration, be it on parental rights and education, be it against all this trans ideology in school, be it against climate alarmism. We are in favour. We just want to live in a normal country where people have the hope of getting a job, finding a house, that their kids can stay in Ireland. We are not looking for anything new or fandangled or crazy. We're just looking to be a normal country. Like normal countries make their own laws, control their own borders, etc. And that's all we're looking for. But it's good. I believe it's necessary. These big parties, Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, they've all moved over to the left. They've all become this kind of like a woke uni party. And so there's an increasing number of people. I'll give an example of how people have woke up there. All the parties, virtually all the parties in the Dáil there, supported a referendum there. Was it March or May of this year, where they looked to remove the word mother and woman from the Irish Constitution. Now, all the parties, virtually all the parties in the Dáil, supported this, and it got kicked back hugely by either three-quarters of. There was two referenda. In one, it was 2/3 of the. It was rejected, and another referenda, it was rejected by three-quarters of the population. Now, that's the first time in decades where there has been a rejection and a kickback against the woke establishment. So the people are starting to wake up a bit. Now we need to coalesce maybe parties, or for the winner takes all, for the fittest and strongest party, nationalist. Like, we are economically liberal, socially conservative, and nationalist party. It's either survival of the fittest, or there's going to be a coalescing, which I don't believe it was, because we don't want to go in with people who want to put forward crazy ideas. So I believe that we're going to continue, go forward, and that we will pick up more votes. And we're already having an impact on the national conversation, because even on issues with trans ideology, about immigration, these parties, like, they know that we are coming, and they're trying to toughen up their language, but you don't know if they have any credibility after their support for the craziness over the last number of decades.
Yeah, completely. Let's do two more. So let's just do a couple of minutes on each of these. Just want to bring them up, and this is what is happening in Syria. Not that either of us are probably experts on the situation there, but tens of
No, Peter, no.
I don't mean to diss you. Tens of thousands flee in mass exodus as Islamist-led rebels look set to capture a third Syrian city after taking Aleppo, which is the second one. And the last line really caught me, with fears it could spark new European migration surge. And the war in Syria has been a catalyst for people coming and an excuse for people coming. And I think that concern that this could spark a new migration problem, as if we didn't have one already, that is a concerning part of that, I think.
No, what has happened in Syria before, what is happening now is going to be an explode. Like, we've all seen the video where you see, like, this Islamist crowd opened up the prison of all these Islamic radical prisoners have been released. We saw what happened with the absolute barbarism of Islamic violence in Syria before. It's basically Assad has held back this tide of radical extremist violence that always has a potential there in Syria. Just yesterday, I did a video right outside the European Parliament, 50 yards in the front of the European Parliament, where you had hundreds of young men, all with their faces turned away, all looking into the center. They are like the flag of the Free Syrian Army. It's a hodgepodge of ISIS, Al Qaeda, jihadists, dangerous, violent, Islamic extremists, right here outside the center of the political Europe here in Brussels. And of course, a woman, they were all covered. They had hijabs, they had face cover, they had their head covered, every one of them. These are the radical Islamic extremists right on the streets of Brussels here. Now, that is a clear example that Ireland needs borders, Britain needs borders, Europe needs borders to stop these people coming in. These people present a clear and present threat to the security of our society. I believe it's crazy that they're allowed in here, not coming in here as refugees. Many of them are coming in here as sleeper jihadists, and we are crazy to allow them in. They shouldn't be next or near the problem. I am sorry for look, you get rid of, like, what has history shown over the last 20 years is, if you get rid of these Arab hard men, right underneath you have these Islamic extremists ready to cut people's throats at a second's notice. So, does democracy, like liberal democracy as they have in America, suit the Arab world? It doesn't seem so. I'm sorry, but you got rid of Gaddafi, guys in Egypt, Assad, to try to get rid of for years. Like, the alternative to the Arab hard man is the Islamic extremist, and it's which is the lesser of two evils, like.
And we've all suffered from the removal of Saddam Hussein, who kept a lid on those tensions within the country. And now supposedly we have to keep a lid on the tensions in the country. our problem. But
Yeah, yeah. And actually, it's funny. There was a thing there. There was these large concrete. Sorry, it was disguised concrete bollards at the top of Grafton Street, the main shopping street in Dublin. And I put up a post there. They put it up there about 2 Christmases ago. It's disguised to look like Christmas tree or whatever. And I said, like, you either have borders around your country or you have bollards
yeah,
on your streets. This is to protect people running down in lorries and large vans, tunneling down the main shopping street and killing as many people as they can, as we've seen in Nice, for example, there with lorries steamrolling over people. We need to have proper border checks in our country. We should only take in people that we need. It can only be done by our needs rather than immigrants' desire to come here. We need to know who you are, where you're from, do you have a criminal record, do you have anything to contribute to our country? And Ireland, I believe that we've got to stop the free stuff. You stop the free welfare, free money, free housing, free everything. Like they will stop. They're like the vast majority of people coming here are economic migrants. They're here for the free stuff. You stop the free stuff, they stop coming, and they go home.
yep,
And our policy is also we need to tighten up on Irish citizenship, that they've been thrown around like sweeties before. We need to go back and re-examine these citizenship that were given out. They should only have Irish citizenship if you have an Irish parent or that you have an Irish spouse. We only have the same rules as they have in the vast majority of Western Europe. All countries have those rules, bar America and Latin America. All the rest of Europe, etc., they all have jus sanguinis, where like Nigeria, for example, we want to have the same citizenship laws as Nigeria and Turkey, where you get citizenship if you're a national or if you're married to a spouse of a national. Just throwing passports around like confetti devalues the passport, devalues the citizenship, and that applies to every country.
exactly. And Ireland
But what is going on in Syria is very problematic, and this anti-Assad rhetoric from the West. Look, UKIP years ago had a very they were opposed to war in Syria, and it became known that actually Assad was actually protecting minorities, Christian minorities, and various religious minorities in Syria, while the jihadists coming in wanted to wipe them all out. So, we're not saying Assad is Mother Teresa. We're not saying that he's like a savior or a great guy, but he's a hell of a lot better than the alternative. That's all we're saying.
No, completely. Let's just do 2 minutes on this, just because it's on the net zero issue and the collapse of it. And this is Germany's Volkswagen workers down tools as electric car sales stall. And you've got 80,000 downing their tools as demand for EV vehicles collapses. And of course, the German car industry is huge. And they're very concerned about the punitive tariffs and attacks on the motor car. But it seems as though the tide is turning, and that people have said we're having enough, and now we're worried about our jobs, and this net zero nonsense is just going to destroy the whole European economy. So it seems though the tide is turning on people standing up to the nonsense.
See, Volkswagen, they employ 300,000 people in Germany. It's also, I believe, Porsche, a few Audi and Porsche as well. They make these cars. The EV car experiment or transport experiment has been a disaster. We've all seen the videos of these burning buses, burning cars, exploding batteries. They're very unsafe, one, expensive, two, inefficient, three, and really unnecessary. And also, the amount of mining that has to be done to get the materials for these large, heavy batteries is colossal. So I don't believe they're even ecologically beneficial. But what Ireland actually just came up during the week there, this whole climate alarmism scare that Ireland, RTE had had an article up about Ireland is going to be fined for failing to is going to be fined up to €20 billion for failing to reach these net zero targets. RT article doesn't put in at all who it's going to be fined by. It's going to be fined by the European Union. But Ireland voluntarily signed up to these targets and then was going to take large fines from the EU. It's madness. Look, carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Actually, NASA has shown over the last 35 years with increased level of CO2 that actually the planet has actually greened more. So this phobia or irrational fear of carbon dioxide is nonsensical. Actually, only carbon dioxide is only 421 parts per million of our atmosphere. Only 3% of that is actually from human activity, and no scientist has been able to show that 3% of the carbon dioxide causes global warming, and the 97% which occurs naturally doesn't cause it. So I think they're chasing after something. I don't know. Is it a bit like COVID? They try to manipulate people through fear. We've seen all these scare tactics before, but sure, in the 1970s, it was global cooling, then it was acid rain, then it was the ozone layer, then it was this and that. It's all about, I believe, some part of it, maybe not all of it, has to do with manipulation and fear. But we do have a problem in the loss of habitat, loss of biodiversity, about pollutants in our air, pollutants in our water. They are things that we should be very concerned about. Pollutants in our food. We should be very concerned about these aspects, but the cows flatulating and stuff like that. I don't believe it's I don't believe we should shut down the economy, and we should switch to and anyway, these sources of energy that they're using, they don't even do what they claim they do, because for example, the stupidity of having solar power in Ireland. I'm sorry, it's like having it in Iceland. It's ridiculous. And wind turbines, all these sources, be it solar power or wind power, they are intermittent, unreliable sources of energy which always need a permanent backup from oil, coal, or gas, or nuclear. So our policy of the Irish Freedom Party that we put forward is we want to stop the carbon tax. I believe it's unjust and unnecessary. We want to bring back 2 peat power power stations in Ireland, which were shut down. They're now burning wood pellets from Brazil. We want to reopen those. We want to start again the exploration for oil and gas. The resources we have in Ireland are immense. We want to reopen those. And we also want a state commission to examine the cost, safety, and efficacy of both tidal power, given that Ireland is an island surrounded by the sea, and also nuclear power, to see that this is probably the cheapest and safest way of generating more energy. And Ireland does need more energy, but it certainly doesn't need this unscientific hysteria about carbon dioxide, and then this economic suicide on foot of that, and destroying whole industries and jobs, and also a way of life.
Completely. It seems that people are waking up. Hermann, appreciate you coming on and giving us your thoughts on the Irish election that's just happened, and many other issues, of course, heading up the Irish Freedom Party. That seems to be absolute common sense over in Ireland. If I was living back over there in Dublin or Limerick or elsewhere, then certainly I would want to be part of campaigning and promoting what you're doing. So Hermann, thanks so much for your time today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Peter. Go on, Maggots.